thanks for joining us for another episode of Marking the Times. This is Dr. Mark Hitchcock from here at Faith Bible Church in Edmond, Oklahoma. And again, I always appreciate so much of those of you who are watching these video blogs that we do every week where we talk about end time events, how current events in our world today relate to the biblical scenario presented in Scripture. Send in your questions. You can send those questions into Facebook, and I'd be glad to answer some questions that you have. So keep those coming. I enjoy answering those. What I want to do today, though, is look ahead in 2019 as we're kind of easing into the year and kind of just give a little bit of an update of what's happening over in Israel. I think sometimes, with all the things that are happening down on the border and our government shutdown and all these kind of things going on, that maybe we kind of lose track of what's happening in other places in the world. But there have been some really important events happening in Israel just here in the last few days. Israel is working feverishly right now to thwart Iran's military buildup in Syria. As many of you know, Iran has been entrenched in Syria now for some time, as well as Russia, which is just a fascinating, scenario for what the Bible predicts, because there you have Iran and Russia, two of the main players mentioned in Ezekiel 38 and 39, poised on the northern border of Israel. And of course, this is setting up a real showdown in Syria between Israel and Iran. And a few days ago, Israel struck a weapons facility, an Iranian's weapon facility at the Damascus airport. They've been hitting Hezbollah targets. Hezbollah is just a proxy of Iran. And this triggered really a firestorm of reaction. There's been a real tit for tat, at least as far as language goes, between the leaders in Israel and in Iran. Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel said this: "I'm telling you," he's speaking to Iran, "to get out of there. We won't stop attacking." And the leaders of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, he said, "Fear the day when Iranian precision missiles hit you and take revenge." And he said, "Don't play with the lion's tail." So there's a lot of really strong rhetoric going back and forth between the two nations. But one of the great fears is, in fact, Iran itself is saying that they can enrich uranium up to 20% within 4 days. So they're working all the time to break the nuclear threshold. They've tried to launch a satellite recently. It failed. They say it's for communications, but Israel says it's to help coordinate with their international continental ballistic missiles that they want to launch. So there's all kinds of things happening there. But there's a report that came out from the Institute for National Security Studies Strategic Assessment for Israel for 2018-19. That's a mouthful. But they've come out with what they call the whole case scenario. And what they're saying is that the battle to keep Iran from further entrenching itself in Syria may have to expand beyond Syria to Lebanon and even ultimately directly to Iran. And they're calling this an all-out war in the north that could break out this year. They're calling it the first northern war. Now, I think that's interesting because the Bible predicts a great northern war for Israel as these nations pour in from the north in Ezekiel 38. But it would involve Iran and Hezbollah and Syria. And this, what's been called the whole case scenario, they're also saying is the worst case scenario. Now, they believe that probably the first area of escalation in this year will be down in the south with Gaza, with the Palestinians down there. But they're afraid if a war breaks out in the north that the Palestinians in Gaza would use that as an opportunity to also escalate things in the south to cause Israel to be fighting on two fronts. But they think down in the south probably is the more immediate area of escalation. But it's interesting, in this report, they say that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is the fundamental problem in Israel's relations with its neighbors. So they recognize that the biggest issue is this ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And they reference in the article that Donald Trump is trying to pull off what they call the deal of the century, to bring some kind of peace agreement between Israel and the Palestinians. And as I've read all this, what it makes me think about is the coming of the Antichrist, where Daniel 9:27 says the event that begins the 7-year tribulation period is a treaty or a covenant between the Antichrist and the nation of Israel. And so what's coming in the future really will be the deal of the century. Like it may be the deal of the millennium when the Antichrist comes along and is somehow able to at least temporarily solve this crisis in the Middle East. And what we see happening there today, just the boiling cauldron that's there and just kind of awaiting a spark at any moment to light the fuse on this Middle East powder keg, points toward the coming of someone who can bring some relative calm and peace to that area, albeit temporarily. But also we see, again, with the conflict with Iran that's brewing there in Israel, and again, one spark could go up at some time and set this thing off. And we see how that's setting the stage for the Ezekiel 38 war. I mean, the Ezekiel 38 war could be the next great war. I mean, it could be happening soon. Or it may be something that what's happening there today is just setting the stage for, and it will occur a few years down the road. We don't know. But what we see happening there today is setting the stage for the rise of Antichrist. It's setting the stage for the Ezekiel 38-39 war. And many people believe that 2019 is the year when something very dramatic is going to happen over there with Israel, Syria, Hezbollah, Iran, down in the area of the Gaza, all of that. Maybe all of those areas included. So this worst case scenario, or this whole case scenario they're talking about, could become that worst case scenario. So we'll keep our eyes on these things. We'll keep you alerted to any developments that we see along these lines. But it gives us hope every day that the coming of Christ could be drawing near, and to live our lives in faithfulness to Him so that we'll be ready when He comes. God bless you. We'll see you next time.